Let's bring in our next guest, another friend. It's great to have a show where you can have your friends on. Uh, Met this dude at the Rage Against the War Machine rally. We got to speak over there, but he's been hitting the spot, ladies and gentlemen. Also saw him in New York. We were hanging out at the Gerald Salente event, and then we went for some Mexican food after. You might have seen him all over the tweets and the Twitters. He's known as going in and interrupting politicians and putting the hard questions to their face. Remember, we told you what their tactics are. What Gavin Newsom does, what the mainstream media does, they hide. They put a shield around themselves. They shield themselves from any tough questions. Like I said, they can tell you that Jack and the Beanstalk really does exist, that the Easter Bunny is real, that the Tooth Fairy is going to give you money. Why? Because there's nobody ever there to push back against them. Well, one guy said enough is enough, and he's going to get in this room and he's going to start pushing back against them. And if they want to stop this guy from asking questions, sometimes they got to remove him by force. Ladies and gentlemen, my good friend Jose Vega is with us today.
All right. Am I in?
There you are, buddy. Look at it. Hey, what's going on, man?
You look more candidatorial than I do, man. My hair is a mess. I'm wearing a black t-shirt, are you running for something?
Yeah, I'm running to be the mayor of Pasta Town over here. I'm saying the macaroni mayor over here, I'm just trying to be the boss of my own show, so I'm trying to look good doing it. Be a little serious, try to get some people in this damn independent media, thing, because we can talk about guys like you who get in the room and ask tough questions and ask serious questions. Well, I figure we could talk about this Senate bill that they're trying to pass over there, because they said it's dead at arrival in the House. Now, you are running for Congress, correct, against Richie Torres? What district is that? That is. When do you need your signatures? When can we expect that? Give us a little something, and then we'll dive right into it.
Sure, no problem. So New York 15 is the district. When do I need my signatures? April 16th to May 31st. As people know, I worked on Diane Sayre's campaign, and we were the only third party to actually get on the ballot, as LaRouche, by the way. You think about that. Greenies couldn't do it. The Libertarians couldn't do it. And we pick like the worst name you can put on a ballot in New York, because, the name LaRouche is pretty third rail, but in New York, man, the liberals hate him. So now, we're doing it again. We're just as crazy. And we need those petitions. We need those signatures April 16th to May 31st. We need to get 7,000 for me, right? In my little tiny district in the Bronx, we need 7,000. And Diane needs 45,000, actually 68,000, probably more. So, people should go to my website, votevega.nyc, and then hit the volunteer button. If you can't donate, hit the volunteer button. That is just as good, if not better. So, there you go. That's it. Power, not force, baby. I got to hit the campaign. I got to hit the streets today. I was in front of Hostos Community College. It's one of the biggest community colleges here in the South Bronx. Mm-hmm. And I had this beautiful sign. The content itself is not beautiful, but the way it's designed is beautiful. It's Richie Torres ignores this, and it's like a Bronx building that has collapsed because nobody cares about the Bronx here, and then so that he can fund this, and it's the Gaza genocide. So people
all right,
Torres here.
Let's talk about that, because I heard you talk about when you're working in the coffee shop that he's too much of an APEC hack and too much of a Zionist. Let's talk about this right over here. Cheese Slice, get us in position where we can look at this chart over here real quickly. So, can we get this up? How do we get this up? There we are, really quickly. Where does the $118 billion in the Senate bill go? Well, they got the Red Sea conflicts over there for 2.4. I know it's hard to read. I'll just read it for you. They got 4.8 in Indo-Pacific conflicts, which is Taiwan, China. 10 million to go to Gaza, they're saying, for humanitarian. 14.1 going to Israel. 20.2 for the security bill, which is the second most spelled. But 60 billion with a B dollars going to Ukraine. Your thoughts, because I've been yapping about Ukraine the whole time. What are your thoughts of them trying to kind of swindle this money and put it to Ukraine?
It's interesting because you've had Scott Ritter and Judge Napolitano and some of these other big experts, people on the Duran saying, Ukraine is dead in the water. Like, it is dead. It's, and yet what is going on with this zombie bill to try and revive the conflict in Ukraine? I think it was Chuck Schumer. he came out and said, folks, if you don't fund this bill, if you don't support this bill, you're going to have U.S. troops fighting Russians and people in the Middle East very soon. Now, I'm not very happy with what's everything in the bill, Republicans. It's a compromise. He's really selling it to the New York liberals. I mean, it's just absurd. It's like bribery. It's like, if we don't get this bill passed, we're going to have World War III. We're going to have World War III if we fund this thing. And so my thoughts is that, I mean, I know it failed, I think, today, something like by like 250 votes for no versus the rest yes. And I think it's because the House Republicans want to split the Ukraine funding from the Israel funding, which none of it should actually be funded at all. I mean, why are we funding any war out, without any congressional authority either, by the way? Well, I guess that is the congressional authority, but we are funding two wars right now. And I mean, it's just really absurd and deranged. You come out here to my district, the poorest district in the country, by the way. Like, I looked this up, I verified it. 30% of people here are living under the poverty line. We've shut down hospitals, we've shut down schools. Oh, but by the way, we need some billions of dollars because we got to go kill some Russians, right? I mean, it's absurd.
It is ridiculous. In fact, we do have that Chuck Schumer video.
Oh.
Let's get that up really quick to show the people what they said. I think it's ridiculous. We'll go full screen on it there, Cheese Slice. But it's just nuts, the fact that they're going to sit there and threaten the fact that Americans are going to have to fight this war if we don't stop Putin. And I've been kind of using this analogy that it's a piggy bank with a coin, and they're trying to shake that last coin out of it. It feels like they can get one last big payday for their money laundering scheme. Take a listen to Chuck Schumer out there talking about, hey, we have to do this. Otherwise, you know what?
We're at a turning point in America. This bill is crucial, and history will look back on it and say, did America fail itself? Why is it crucial? Well, if we don't aid Ukraine, Putin will walk all over Ukraine. We will lose the war, and we could be fighting in Eastern Europe in a NATO ally in a few years. Americans won't like that. If we don't help Israel defend itself against Hamas, that perpetual war will go on and on and on. If we don't help humanitarian aid to the starving Palestinians in Gaza, hundreds of thousands could starve. And the border, everyone has said it's chaos. You just saw Speaker Johnson. He said it's chaos. We have to do something legislative a few months ago. But what has happened, in answer to your question, so this is crucial for America. It's a turning point. History is going to look over our shoulders and say, did we rise to the occasion? To his credit, Mitch McConnell did. But too many Republicans, including Speaker Johnson, are just scared to death of Donald Trump. Donald Trump has said he wants chaos. Donald Trump has said, well, wait till I become president. That'll take at least a year. Ukraine could be gone. The border will get much worse. War in the Middle East will get worse, maybe bringing us into it. He's doing it all for political reasons. And let me just say, will senators, the crucial question, the $64,000 question, the majority of Republican senators know this bill is the right thing to do. It's a compromise. I don't like everything in it. Neither does McConnell. But it's a compromise. That's the only way you get things important done in the Senate. We proved that 2 years ago in our bipartisan legislation. And will the senators drown out the political noise from Trump and his minions and do the right thing for America? It's a crucial question. History is looking down on every one of us right now.
Where do they get their playbook from when they constantly say history will look at us so badly if we don't do the right thing? They constantly refer to this all the time. History is going to look back at us like history is a person and say, how could you not do that? And before I get to this next topic over here, which is pretty much about the standalone bill, remember, they removed Speaker McCarthy. One of the reasons was not just the funding of the Ukraine war, but they didn't want all these. They wanted a single item line voting bills, right? In other words, one item, let's bring it to the table. That's it. And I think, as you know, you're running for Congress, that's something you might agree on. They're trying to lump all this crap together to provide political cover for the people who want to vote for or against it. It's ridiculous. But what are your thoughts when they constantly say that history is going to look back at us and whatnot? What are your thoughts on this particular bill?
Well, first of all, I would agree with single item bills, because they play this stupid game where they pass an omnibus, right, every year. And I think it was Senator Rand Paul who brought attention a couple of years ago at the last omnibus. It was like yay big, the the whole thing, and then they only had like 6 hours to read the whole thing and vote on it. Nobody was going to read the thing, right? That goes right there to tell you that the whips in the party, right? So they have these things called majority whips, where they have people designated within their parties in the Congress to go and talk to the other people in the Congress and say, hey, Republicans, we're voting yes on this, or we're voting no on this. It's absolutely insane and stupid. So yeah, I think I would be for itemized single line bills. This idea of like, well, history is going to look at us and history will not absolve us. I didn't know Chuck Schumer was a Fidel Castro reader or something. I think that was Fidel Castro's the title, right? History will absolve me.
Yeah. He's going to. He's doing a good job at it, man.
Yeah.
So here it is.
Yeah.
Now, really quickly, take a look. Biden said he would veto a standalone Israel bill. Aid administration says. Jamie, if you could take him down real quick so we can see this really quickly. I'm going to read this. President Biden would veto a standalone House bill that would provide $17.6 billion in aid to Israel if it reaches his desk, the Office of Management and Budget announced late Monday. The veto threat comes after the administration and many in Congress worked for months on a larger national security supplemental funding bill that would provide support not just to Israel, but to Ukraine and make changes to the border security. Republicans in the White House intend to move forward this week with a vote on a standalone Israel bill, despite the Senate's work on a larger supplemental aid agreement. Instead of working in good faith to address the most pressing national security challenges, this bill is another cynical political maneuver, OMB said in a statement of administration policy. The security of Israel should be sacred, not a political game. The administration strongly encourages both chambers of the Congress to reject this political ploy and instead quickly send the bipartisan Emergency National Security Supplemental Appropriations Act to the president's desk. The House Republicans have been at odds for months with Democrats and the White House before over separating aid to Israel from other national security interests. On Saturday, House Speaker Mike Johnson told his colleagues he wants a new Israel aid package to be ready in short order. We will take up and pass a clean, standalone Israel supplemental package, Johnson said in the letter. So what are your thoughts, Jose, as far as what's going to get done? Listen, I'm with you. I agree that we should have single item bills out there. That's it. None of this pork, none of this lumping it together, what they're trying to do. But when you have the mainstream media trying their hardest, right, to say even the Washington whatever says that this bill is one of the most bipartisan bills, they're just grasping for straws, trying to get the argument out to the mainstream, to the public, that this bill is a necessary bill. What Schumer's saying, that history is going to look back at us. But Schumer is he's a Zionist, right? We know this. He's tight with the Israeli lobbyist. What do you think is going to happen here? Because if, in fact, this other bill is dead on arrival, like the speaker says, and they put forth this other bill and they pass it, will the president threaten to veto it if it's, an Israeli bill standalone? I mean, could these Zionists, these Democratic Zionists who desperately want to get this aid package to Ukraine, do they have the cojones to stand up and vote against this standalone bill in Israel? And isn't that a good thing in a way, if in fact, even if it's something we despise as, because we're not Zionists, you know what I'm saying? And we're looking at it. Isn't that a good thing if they try to pass a standalone bill and the establishment balks? Your thought?
Well, there's a game being played, and these are all the kind of political games that, I do not want to play. Should I be elected, in the off chance that I somehow win? Do you know about this letter that the Congress members signed to Blinken? It was like 200 some, congressmen signed a letter to Blinken saying that the South African case at the International Court of Justice, alleging that Israel is committing, we can't say certain words on here, right? We're on YouTube. Is that the case?
You can go ahead.
Okay, genocide, that Israel is committing genocide, right? They called that case disgusting. All 200 of those people who signed that should just be gone and replaced, with people who actually give a shit, right? Yeah. I am not here to, try and play these games in the House and try and political armchair. The entire Congress is defunct. Would it be great if they don't pass the standalone Israel bill? Yeah, that would be wonderful. That would be great. But that's just a temporary solution to the bigger problem here is that you have an entire like corrupt Congress, right? That's the problem, So I think what I hope happens is that people decide to stand up and elect themselves to do something. So, I'm sorry. I know I'm the worst at political arm chairing. I hope that your viewers here decide to run also against one of these Congress people or something.
Well, let's talk about what's going on in Israel and Gaza and stuff like that. Let's try to stay away from the G word so we don't get spanked up. We are a new show, but I know what you mean.
I asked you if I could say
Well, I don't want to push it, so we you can say it once or twice, but let's not
okay.
let's not go crazy with it. But what is taking place there seems to be, you know what, it's only getting worse. What is it going to take? I mean, it was crazy to me. I put on Newsmax because I do look at a lot of the mainstream media. I look at both conservative and liberal media, mainstream media out there. And Newsmax was talking today about how an IDF representative was saying that 1/5 of the hostages that are left are presumed dead. They think are dead. And they were saying it was such a tragedy. It was so awful. Yet there's 30,000 people dead over here, civilians, just because they were Palestinians. And it's not a shame that they're dead right over there. There still seems to be a grasping of straws from the mainstream media, from the government, from the networks to still kind of push, Jewish hate is up a lot, you know what I'm saying? Trying to manufacture consent for what Israel is doing. How do you see this coming to an end? If we're going to continue to go, hey, they should stop it, but we're going to still supply the weapons, how is this going to end?
Well, if nothing is done to intervene in the population, I think World War III. I mean, look at what's happening with the fact that, you have the Houthis that are doing what they're doing. You have the fact that we're courting war with Iran right now, and, that we just striked Syria, right? Because we're there. We should not be there, right? And we just happen to be there looking for more excuses for war. The way this is going to all end, if nothing is done for people to actually intervene on this, it's just going to end in World War III, and that's just going to end in us all getting kabloom, kapowie. That's how this is going to end. That's why I'm running, because I don't want that to happen. I want people to actually, stand up for once, and say, I'll give you a great example. I was thinking about it the other day that come November, people are going to have to go to the ballot box and they're only going to see Richie Torres' name, and then they're going to have to pick between Trump, Biden, or Kennedy. None of these people are qualified, in my opinion. I can't run for president, but I can run for Congress. I don't want to have to, I think it's going to be a disgusting act come November when people have to look at that ballot box and have to pick between, all right, do I take a shot of poison or do I get shot in the head? Which one's going to be quicker, right? I want to give people another choice and say, you know what, maybe I don't have to do that anymore. Maybe I can do something different.
In New York, there is also a situation that Fox and Newsmax won't let go of. Some migrants were beat up by some illegal immigrants, is what they're saying. That's the way they phrase it, right? Some migrants beat up couple police officers, and then went crazy about this whole thing. And then they let them go without bail. And eventually they apprehended some of them today in Phoenix. And it was like breaking news when they got them. Like, this is the most breaking news out there. The fact that these guys, hit up on a police officer. It's not like the police officers are like in critical condition or anything. They were kicking them and hitting them. I'm sure they took a couple shots and stuff, but don't get me wrong. And I'm not praising violence over here, or even condoning it in any ways. But the fact is that this is one of the biggest issues there. You're in New York where this happened, and you see the homelessness on the streets, and they talk about these new immigrant gangs that are there. Yeah. They say they're predominantly Venezuela. How do you look at that situation as an activist, and how would you look at it as a politician?
Wow, great question. Well, I'm trying to be a politician now, and I went through this identity shift where there's Jose Vega, the intervener, and then there's Jose Vega, the congressman now. And Jose Vega, the congressman, it's a different approach than Jose Vega, the intervener and the activist. As an activist, it's not difficult to see the insane conditions that the illegal immigrants are living in right now. You see the the housings that they're they're living in hotels, but people, the thing that people are getting wrong about that is that yeah, they are happening in fancy hotels, downtown and like Times Square and stuff, but these places are stuffed. They're stuffed. They got like 5, 6, 7 people living in a hotel room. A lot of these people don't speak English. A lot of them can't work legally. The situation's insane because you don't know who's here. So some of those people are criminals. And I know people who work with those legal immigrants that are living there, and they say it's like hell in there, right? Because there are people causing trouble. There's domestic abuse happening. It's horrible in there. And not everyone in there is a criminal. Those people deserve humanitarian aid just like anybody else. Now, that being said, the problem is that one, there hasn't been a recognition of how this happened. How many countries have we couped? How many leaders have we killed? How many countries have we destabilized? Right? That's where the problem is. And so, as an activist, I would say we need to get those migrants as much help as they can get, and we need to figure out and clean up what's actually going down at the border, because the border is a problem. Drug trafficking, human trafficking, all of that is a center down there. Now, it's not because of the border that these things are happening. The border just happens to be included in these systems. I think, like, rapidly, if I were a congressman, I would say we need to build some kind of housing units down by the border, put people there and vet people and figure out who's coming in, who's not coming in, who really does need the asylum, who doesn't need the asylum, who's running away from the law, who actually needs the help, who's running away from danger. That I think you definitely need right now. But then going one step further as a politician, right? Like if I were to actually deem policy, okay, well, what are we going to do with immigrants? Well, you say, look, our country right now has failing infrastructure. We have no housing units for anybody. We have no hospitals. We have no schools. We don't have the infrastructure to take care of people. So we need an emergency crash program, 1 year, 2 years. What can we build in 2 years that can make the country habitable for another 300 to 400 million people? And then you'll realize that, oh my God, we need way more people to get trained to come in and actually rebuild the country. So I would say grab the immigrants, accept them, and train them so that they can be engineers, carpenters, welders, whatever we need, so that they can go and actually build things in this country that they can then use and other people can use.
So, a lot of people are going to say, but those jobs should go to Americans. They shouldn't go to migrants, right? They're going to say, that's the first thing they're going to say to you, Jose, is like, well, they're coming in and taking away American jobs. I do like the fact that you pointed out that they are coming because of coups left and right. But a lot of people are going to say that work right there should be reserved for Americans. What would you say to people like that? I mean, that's a great plan and a great thought process. We need our infrastructure in our country is awful. From New York to LA, it's crazy. It's bad. We need to rebuild this whole place. And I don't even think we have enough people here right now to do it if we really set out to do it. But
that's right.
A lot of people are going to say, Jose, they're going to say right off the bat, but those jobs should be reserved for American workers. What are your thoughts? What are you going to say to that?
Sure, I agree. But my point is that when you actually lay out the national plan and you say, okay, well, we need to rebuild a lot of we need to rebuild a lot of national infrastructure. So we need to rebuild a lot of our highways. We need to rebuild a lot of our hospitals around the country. And then you bring in advanced infrastructure, high-speed rail, all connecting across the nation. Right? We need nuclear power plants around the country, or just regular power plants, oil and gas power plants around the country. What you'll realize is that there aren't enough Americans to build all these things. So every American who wants a job will get a job, and then we will be begging for immigrants to come in. If we want to prioritize Americans to come in, get in the queue first, fill that up, fine. That's fine with me. In fact, I would prioritize the people of the Bronx. Because when you think of the Bronx, what do you think of? You think of the poverty, you think of the illiteracy, you think of the violence. And so I would want to start with the people in the Bronx and say, you know what, people think you're failures. I don't. Let's get you trained up and let's export you around the country and around the world. Because then you can be an example of rebuilding your neighborhood, your community, and then rebuilding everyone else's neighborhood. And then we set up these centers around the country, everywhere else. So
you did say something that it was interesting to a lot of people. There's, I think, a misconception out there. A lot of people say, and this is once again a conservative talking point, these people come in, they get, phones and fancy hotels and cars and whatnot. Can you talk about, bus tickets to wherever they want to go, and they get money all the time, and they get living in the hotels, and they get phones. And could you talk a little bit more about the conditions and what you're witnessing with the immigrants in New York?
Yeah, it's horrible. It's horrible. I mean, Diane could probably say more because she actually went down to where the immigrants are. And the first thing that surprises you is that a lot of these immigrants aren't even from the Central American or South American countries. A lot of them are from French-speaking African nations. Like, whoa, why is that happening, right? Why is it that you have a whole other continent of people coming in and flying into Mexico to get in? Right now, of course, it all has to go with the fact that, yes, we have destabilized these countries, right? It's like, whoa, okay, so that's the very first thing you notice. It's like not all of these people are speaking Spanish. They're speaking French, or they're speaking whatever their native tongue is. And so you see the streets here in Times Square, especially, it's dirty, it's impoverished. People are just either prostituting themselves or selling drugs on the street, trying to make ends meet. And as somebody who has a close friend who's a caseworker, like who works personally in one, housing place, right, for these immigrants, she tells me, like, she knows that what a lot of those people are doing is illegal. People prostituting themselves, people being drug mules, people being this, people being that. And, she, like, it's like we report them and nothing is done, right? Because there is no other alternative for people to make a living. And so the people who try to make some kind of semblance of a living, what they do is they pay a New York citizen to use their identity so that they can then go on Uber Eats, because you need to be a US citizen to actually sign up for Uber Eats to be a courier. So they'll pay a New Yorker for their ID or for their whatever, their social security number. And then they'll say, okay, great. Maybe they'll do a monthly payment, something, whatever. And then they can go and do deliveries for Uber Eats. I mean, it's just, it's bad. Okay. And then look, I know I'm talking about the plight of the poor, migrants. It is bad for them, but don't get me wrong. New Yorkers are feeling it too. I mean, New York is already a fucked up place. Immigrants are not. Right. Rent is sky high. People are living beyond, way worse than paycheck to paycheck. You can't live here without some kind of government assistance. It's just not possible if you're not some Wall Street broker. Right. So things are already bad for New Yorkers here, period. Right. And then you add on an immigration problem, right, where now you're flooding the city with way over capacity. I mean, now, I will give credit to AOC. AOC said this a few months back. She said, in the 1890s and the early 1900s, we were taking in way more immigrants and people didn't have any problems. Now, that is true because there was more housing available and there were more productive jobs available. And so what I'm saying is, well, let's build more housing and let's make more productive jobs. I don't think people should be doing Uber Eats. I understand that's just the gig economy we live in. That's not a productive economy.
So what you're saying is that it's not as rosy as they make it out to be. It is a hard living. They're trying to make it there. And you've also pointed out the fact that why they're coming in the first place is really not really their fault too, as well. A lot of our government intervention within these countries, especially the wars, the regime change, and the posting up of puppet governments is what kind of leads to a destabilized country, making the flow of migration come here in the first place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's pretty much a good summary of the problem. Yeah.
So if you don't get an infrastructure bill, if you can't find a way to get, just curious if you thought this through, because I mean, this is tough. So it's a great, solution. It's a great suggestion. Let's build more shit. Let's work on an infrastructure. Let's put these migrants to work. They're here. If we did that, there'll probably be enough work for everybody, Americans and migrants. Let's stop the endless wars, the crazy wars. I mean, you're a LaRouche person. Your foreign policy is solid. You don't want to intervene. So you're there. But what would you do if, in fact, you couldn't curtail foreign policy because you're just one man in the Congress when you replace Richie Torres? And if you weren't able to get an infrastructure like bill, do you have a plan B? Have you thought about anything? I mean, would sealing up the border really even work to begin with?
I have an even more radical plan, because you don't have a government right now. I mean, you just don't. The congressmen are all bought and paid for. The Senate, way more bought and paid for, right? As a candidate, I can tell you, I read through the FEC book. you can only accept $3,300 from individuals as the limit. That's the limit. But me personally, I could put as much money as I want to for my campaign. You know how much money I have personally? Like this much. This is how much I have personally, right? What am I supposed to do? So you think about it. Okay, well, like Dan Goldman, who's the Wall Street guy, okay, who's like, that's his district is Wall Street. Of course, he can buy his way into the Congress, right? You know, people like that should not be allowed anywhere near any kind of decision making. So, you know, I am calling for, at the very least, the 200 Congress people who signed that letter to Blinken to just be replaced. And that would be my plan. If I were to win, the very first thing would be to try and inspire Americans to take back their government, you know, because I can't make promises. I would be one congressman out of 434, and I am not going to play a game with corrupt congressmen and snakes, right? I'm not going to come here and tell you, oh, I'll make deals, I'll make concessions like Chuck Schumer. Not everything in the bill I like. You know, Republicans don't like everything in the bill. I don't like everything. No, I'm not doing that, okay? Unless you have an honest government like Angela McArdle. I love her to death. You put me in a room with her and we start talking about economics, we'll be at each other's throats. And you know what? I believe that woman should be a senator because she is motivated by what is going to be the best decision and the best course for my child. That's a government I can trust right there. We can argue about economics, but that's somebody I would try and make a concession with or some kind of, you know, deal with.
So you're, I believe, from El Salvador, your family, right?
That's
correctly?
right.
So Nayib Bukele just won the presidency with 85% of the vote.
Sorry,
right?
that was funny.
Right. What's that?
No, the way you said his name was just funny as well. It's
Bukele?
Bukele.
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 All right. Nayib.
Naib.
Naibs. Jeez. Tomato there, Jose. He just won the vote. He won the vote with 85%. He won his election 85% of the vote. There's not going to be a second round, so I can't go there for the second round because he ended up and he wrapped it up in the first round. What are your thoughts on that there? He's not a hardcore leftist, you know what I'm saying? He's anti-communist. He used the tactic of locking up a bunch of criminals with the, you know, supermax prisons, and a lot of people criticized him for that, especially other presidents in the region. Gustavo Petro from Colombia was very critical of him doing that, saying, we built schools, not prisons. And he's like, why don't you worry about your own country, asshole? So what are your thoughts on him winning the presidency with 85%?
Well, all right. So I have to speak as a congressman, not as an activist. And this is difficult for me because I am a Bukele super fan, but I'm an American first. So I have to do that. Why am I a Bukele super fan? Because when he won his presidency in 2018, he made this great speech about how we're going to take back our independence. And then one of the first things he did was he stopped recognizing Taiwan as the one China, and he recognized the mainland as China. Then he welcomed Russian diplomats to come in. So he started normalizing his relations with Russia and China. He didn't care about it. Then about 2 or 3 years later, the entire legislative assembly was replaced, right? So I think they control like 68 seats now out of 70 or so. And their party is called the New Ideas Party. You can't really put Bukele in a box of left or right. I disagreed wholeheartedly with the whole Bitcoin thing. You know, that was, if there was any like
I loved him for that.
No.
I thought him telling the IMF to go scratch it, he's going to take in Bitcoin, and the remittance alone, where you don't have to pay hundreds of dollars to Western Union, you can now send money for pennies. That an extra $75 to $100 for a Salvadorian family is awesome. Also, him handing out packages during COVID of ivermectin. Awesome. Those are the things I loved about him. So, but please continue.
You know, as a LaRouche, I have different economics, and you know, telling the IMF to go screw itself, very good. Yes, 1,000%. And I understand the fear, because the Bitcoin thing was like, well, what if I get sanctioned, right? If I get sanctioned, what's my recourse? What's my fallback? You know, because if our people can't use the US dollar, what can they use? So at best, I can chalk it up to maybe an alternative idea by a young president, but that's a policy that's internal politics of El Salvador, one that I, as a congressman, should not comment on, although I have a lot of family down there. And anyway, Bukele has lowered the murder rate in El Salvador, and he has built highways that connect every municipality and every little rural village. And he has brought water, clean water, to 99% of all municipalities when before he was president in 2016, before he was president, only 50% of municipalities actually had clean water. So, I've got a lot of family down there. They're happy, and I wish Bukele the best. And I hope that if I were to win, him and I would collaborate in ways that would, in diplomatic ways. So,
Jose and Naib working together, ladies and gentlemen. Let everybody know where they can go find you. Throw you a couple pennies. Hope we can help you out. And at the very least, let's get a slogan out there to force Richie Torres to debate you. I remember when Tim Canova made the slogan, "Debbie won't debate," and Debbie Wasserman Schultz had so much pressure she had to at least give him one debate. Let's get a slogan out there to force Richie Torres, his little chicken ass, to get in a room and debate Jose Vega, and let everybody know where they can find you.
All right. Well, people can find me at votevega.nyc. In terms of a slogan, don't put me on the spot like this, man. I would need like Jimmy Dore.
We don't need it right now. Let's just think of one.
Okay.
The audience can help you out when you watch this over there.
Tweet me suggestions, if they want to make something. If they want to make something I may not be happy with, but they want to do it anyway, go ahead. Somebody told me I should do TikTok dances and do trends out there. And I'm like, maybe you can do that as a supporter of mine, but I'm not doing that. So
I don't know. I think a TikTok dance might work for you, buddy. You get that dance step in there, we can do it. I don't know.
If Ice Spice endorses me, we can win the Bronx. Okay?
Where can they go again?
Votevega.nyc. It's at the bottom. I see it there. Votevega.nyc. Pasta, I love you. And you know what? Just a real quick message to everyone. The outpouring of love and enthusiasm in the last 3 days, I was blown away. I had no idea so many people were ready to support me with their dollar, with their love, with their messages. And the people who want to volunteer, I did not, honestly, I didn't expect that. And I could never repay people for this. And I don't want to disappoint people. And so thank you, everyone, really.
Well, let's quote the kicker of the Bobby Boucher movie, The Waterboy, at halftime. Well, let's not start making love over here. We got a game to win.
That's
Jose
right.
Vega, just the beginning of the game, ladies and gentlemen. Go over there and help him out. We love him. I love you, brother. I'll see you soon. Meet Jose, the Bronx Warrior. Let's get it done. YouTube still plays those crazy games where they like to unsubscribe people for whatever reason. I don't know if it's part of an algorithm or whatnot, but make sure you're subscribed and make sure you hit that bell and like, share, subscribe to the show. We're going to have this whole show clipped up. We're going to do it the same way we've been doing it on the Combo Couch for many years. We do a whole show, a live show, and then we have certain segments. We're going to repost the segments out there so you can share the shorter versions of the subjects that you like or that you want to share. And that's the most important thing you can do. A lot of us don't have any coin to spare, but we can share, right? That rhymed. We don't have any coin to spare, but we can share. So do me a favor and share.